Base.
Gimel base. The following about carry requires the feeling. If one saw a dribbling fluid or an opaque fluid at the beginning, he is tahor. In the middle or the end, he's tummy, but from the beginning until the end, he is tahor. If it was white and stringy, he's tummy. Rabbi Yossi says white is like opaque. If one discharges thick drops from the member, he is tummy. These are the words of Rabbi Elazar Kizma. If one had bad thoughts at night and arose and found his flesh warm, he's tummy. A woman who emits semen on the third day is tahor. These are the words of Eliezer ben Azariah. Rabbi Yishmael says sometimes it's 4 periods, sometimes 5, and sometimes 6. And Makiva says it's always 5 periods.
When you're talking about periods here, just to explain this because we didn't do it, a period is either a day or a night. So,
Right. Right.
um, so basically, we're talking about how long after she's had relations, if she emits some semen, does she is that semen considered tame? And
Oh.
so if it works according to the 3 days. So if it's 3 days and it was right at the end of the first day, then we're not even going to count that first day. Then so it's the next night, day,
Uh-huh.
and the second and then the second night and the second day, and then after that it's all clear.
Yeah.
Okay. But it could be that it's like right at the beginning of the evening, in which case you've got 2 extra periods in there, according to Rabbi Ishmael. Rabbi Akiva says just always count 5 periods, and that's when it stops being tameh. Okay.
If a Gentile woman emitted the semen of a Jew, it is Tomei. If a Jewish daughter emitted the semen of a Gentile, it is Tahor. A woman had intercourse and she went down and immersed herself, but had not cleaned out her house, as if she did not immerse herself. A Balkari who immersed himself and did not pass water becomes tummy when he does pass water. Josie says in the case of a sick man or an old man, he becomes tummy, but in the case of a young and healthy person, he's taho.
Okay. As nida shenasna ma'os befiha. So nowadays, it's like one of the first things you teach your kids is don't put money in your mouth. You don't know what it's been. It's literally been through hundreds and hundreds of different hands. It's just right. So you don't put money in your mouth. However, apparently there was a thing in the time of the Mishnah of putting money in your mouth to quench your thirst because it drew out saliva or whatever it was, but people did it. Okay. um so the woman has got this coin in her mouth and she just forgot about it when it came time to go to mikveh, Yarda Batavla, and now she goes to mikveh, and now the question is this a chatzitza, this coin in her mouth? Tohara mitumasa. No, it's 100% fine. It's not considered a chatzitza inside her mouth, because it's I don't know, actually I don't see an explanation that it's not a chatzitza. I suppose because she wants it. Um, Aval Tmeahi al gavruka. The problem is that she was a niddah when she walked in, which means her saliva is tame as an avatuma. Okay, which means that the coin in her mouth is a rishon latuma. Wait, the coin in her mouth becomes tame. Wait, and then she becomes and it's matame b'maga masa, and therefore ah okay, so what's happening over here is that because the spittle that's been dislodged and is resting on the coin is no longer considered sort of what's naturally in her mouth. It's an extra layer of spittle that's on top of that, and that so like just looking at it this way, if a niddah spits and there's spittle on the floor, then she goes to mikveh and comes out, her spittle is still tameh as an avatuma, as before. Okay, so you've got this situation where there's this coin in her mouth that's got spittle from before she became a niddah, from when she was a niddah. She goes down and comes back out, and now she immediately is carrying this coin that's got her saliva on it, and therefore she immediately becomes tameh as a rishon, not as a niddah.
The saliva is an avatuma, though, it says.
The saliva is an avatuma, but now that she's carrying it, she becomes a rishon. Is that she becomes a rishon? I'm just thinking about that. Is that right? שלא יצא מחוץ לפרק, שנקרא קודם תפילה מונח למס, לפיכך צמא היא מחמסו. Let's just see what level of tumah she gets. Yeah, she becomes, right, she becomes a rishon tumah.
And the tefillah is valid. The tefillah is valid, though.
Yeah, the tefillah is valid. She doesn't have tumas nida. She can go and live with her husband. No problem.
Uh-huh.
But in terms of eating truma or kodshim, she's got a problem. Okay. Nasna se'ara b'fiha. Now, what happens if she puts her hair in her mouth? Or kaftze yada, or she tightened her fist, or karatza sifsaseh, or she pursed her lips together. Now, you don't have to open your mouth inside the mikveh, but you can't press your lips together in a way that makes it clear that you're trying to prevent the water from getting in. Is any past, like even like the parts of your lips that are normally exposed. That's called the chatzitza, because now you have prevented water from getting to parts of your body. Okay. So if somebody is holding another person or he's holding the kalim and he tovels them, his hand is a chatzitza on those things if he's holding them tight. However, if he rinsed his hand if he put his hand in the water beforehand, or his hand was just simply wet, it doesn't have to be from mikveh water, because as soon as any water touches the mikveh, it becomes mikveh water. Okay, so if his hand is wet when he puts it in, then that is it kind of electrically connects to the rest of the water, and the key is submerged. His hand does not become a chatzitza. Okay, Rabbi Shimon Omer Yerapeh. He says what you need to do is you need to slightly relax your grip on whatever it is that you're putting into the mikveh. So, interesting question: is he saying this as a kula or as a chumrah? You could read it both ways. He's saying it could be a kula, but he's saying no, you don't need to wet your hand. All you need to do is put it in and relax it, and that will do the trick. Or he could be saying that even if your hand is wet, you still have to relax it. Okay, so it's not 100% clear what Rabbi Shimon is saying, and the halacha is brought in like the Tanna Kama. כדי שיבואו בהם המים. בייס הסתרים, בייס הקמטים, אינן צריכים שיבואו בהם המים. So any part of the person's body that is naturally hidden. So that could be under folds of flesh. Anything that's like, under your armpits or whatever, anything that's concealed, you don't have to make a point of like lifting up your arms and putting and making sure that the water gets in there, or you've got all sorts of orifices in your body that might naturally be closed, and you don't need to open them so that the water has to go into them. Okay, enough said. So, what are the things that are a chatzitza on a person who wants to tovel? Now, again, this is talking about when you have a tumah deraisa that you got to be concerned about. For a stam balkeri who just wants to tovel erev Yom Kippur, it's much more makil. You don't have to like do this whole check all over your body to find, because it's not a big deal. But if, for example, you're talking about a nida, or you're talking about somebody who wants to go up to Har HaBayis, you've got to be careful. Okay. So this is what's the chatzitza. Chutei tzemer v'chutei pishtan. Threads of wool or linen. V'aretzuas sheba roshei habanos, or the straps that they use to tie up their hair. So the girls who tie up their hair, if they tie it tightly, then those straps are in fact a chatzitza. They prevent the water from getting through her hair. Rabbi Yehuda Mer shel tzemer shel se'ar einam chotzatim. He says if it's wool or if it's made out of hair, for example, out of human hair, it could be used. People use human hair to thread through their own hair. Hence, sheitlach as well. Okay, but einam chotzatim. This is not called a chatzitza mipnei she'hamayim ba'im bahim, because they're not so tight. The water is able to penetrate them, but when you've got tighter fabrics that are holding them together, that is nonetheless a problem. Halacha follows the chachamim. Mishna base carries on the same theme of things that are chatzitza. Kilke halev b'hazakan. So if you've got like a guy with a very hairy chest and it's matted, if the hair gets all matted, then that can turn out to be a chatzitza, a zakan, and the beard. If his beard is tangled, that can be a chatzitza. Beis hastarim ba'isha, a woman's private parts, if also can if her hair becomes matted, that can also be a chatzitza. Liflof shechutz la'ayin, if you have sort of something coming out of your eye, just any kind of sometimes you get a little bit of an ooze coming out of your eye and it sits in the conjunctivi. That should be cleaned off before you get into mikveh. Gelet shechutz lamaka, so that's a scab. So now the interesting thing is I want to be medayik on the fact that it's shechutz lamaka, that's outside of the wound. Okay, so if the scab on top of the wound, and I don't want to paskin over here, but I'm just reading this into the words clearly, because if you just want to say that a scab is always a chatzitza, then it should just say geled. Okay, but geled shechutz lamaka. So the scab that's on top of a wound is needed there to protect the wound, but sometimes as the wound starts to heal, you get little crusty bits on the edge of the scab that have now broken off away from the skin. So that can be a chatzitza, and therefore that you should break those off if you're talking about a tevila d'oraisa. Okay, the haratia she'aleha, or bandage that's on top of it. Okay, bandage kamuvan is not part of the body. Sraf hayavesh, that's dry resin. So if a person was working with a tree, doing some work in the field or whatever, and he gets resin on his skin and it dries, that is a chatzitza. Gildei tsoa she'al b'saro, or if he has filth that that has dried on his skin. Batzek shetachas hatziporin, dough stuck under the fingernails. Milmulin, milmulin is also little bits of dirt that stick to the hands, and when you rub them off, it says Kahati explains when you rub your hands together, you can see that the dirt comes off if you rub them. So that dirt there is also considered a chatzitza. Tit hayavain. So 3 different types of tit are mentioned. There's tit yavain, tit hayotzrim, the getz yavaini. So all these 3 are types of mud, basically. And the Mishnah goes on to explain what they are. Ezahu tit hayavain, ze tit haborot. That's the mud that comes out of a bore, out of a cistern. Shenimar vayali neimi bor sha'on mitit hayavain. So there's a pasuk in Tehillim that links the tit yavain to what comes out of the bore. Tita yotzrim kamashmao, and potter's clay. That's as you might expect. Rabbi Yossi. So these things are a chatzitza because they are sticky, and even when you go into the water, they don't dissolve. They don't fall off so easily. Rabbi Yossi mitahar b'shel yotzrin. Rabbi Yossi says it's that the potter's clay is not so bad. But he adds on the category of b'shel mareka. Mareka is the mud that is shenilosh belovin beitz bitza.
Sealant clay.
Yeah. But the halacha doesn't follow Rabbi Yossi. And then we explain gates yaveni elu yitdot hadrachim. So like road pegs, is that what it says? Yitzdot hadrachim.
Slimy puddles. They become dried up studs of the roadway.
Okay. She'ein tovlin bahen v'lo matbilin otan. You cannot tovel with these on your body, and you cannot be matbil something that's got these types of mud on them. But other types of sand or mud, matbilin bo k'shehulach, you can put that into mikveh when it's wet because it'll just wash off easily. So that's it's not considered stuck. And even if some of it actually adheres, it's not mashma is not a problem because it's not that badly stuck. it's not considered a chatzitza. It's kind of like going into the mikveh with your mouth closed, but without your lips pressed closed tight together. You don't need to let the water into your mouth, but it just has to be loose. And I kind of see a parallel between that and this, is that it's considered loose. And a person should not lechatchila go into mikveh with the dust that's on his feet. He should first rinse off. However, if he did, no, it actually comes out okay. Lo yitzbol esakum, well, actually, should probably be lo yatbil esakum kumkumos bepechamin. So if you've got a kettle that needs to go into the mikveh, and it's been on a fire, we don't have electric kettles, so it's been on a fire. It's got all that carbon that's gone black all over it. So you have to scrub that off before you can put it into the mikveh, because that is also a chitza. Elim kemi shifshef. He has to rub off the blackening, and that's it.
Hey.
Okay, back to hey.
Hey. Flowing water is like a spring, and trickling water is like a mikveh. The tzaddik testified that when the flowing water is more than the trickling water, it's valid. And if the trickling water was made to flow, it may be blocked over, maybe blocked even with a stick, or even with a cane, or even by a zav or a zava, and then one may go down and immerse himself. These are the words of Reb Yehuda, and Reb Yossi says one may not stop a flow with anything that is susceptible to tumah. If a wave that became separated consisted of 40 saw and it fell on a person or on utensils, they become tahor. In any place that contains 40 saw, one can immerse himself and one can immerse things. Hence, one may immerse things in pits or in ditches, or on a donkey track that is mingled in the countryside. The Shammai says one may immerse things in a river that flows down like a mountain. Basil says one may not immerse anything therein. They agree, however, that one may make an enclosure with utensils and then immerse himself therein, but the utensils themselves used to make the enclosure are not deemed as immersed. New water that mingles with a mikveh is like a mikveh. In the case of holes or a cave or rocks in the cave, one may immerse something in them, however they are. But in the case of a dugout under a cave, one may not immerse anything in it unless there is an opening the size of a water skin tube. And Rabbi Yehuda says, when is it so? When it supports itself. But if it does not support itself, one may immerse something in it, however it is.
Okay. Taurus Dalatis.
Dalatis. An uncertainty of tumah involving beverages with regard to acquiring tumah is deemed tameh. How so? If a tameh person stretches his leg among tahor beverages and it is uncertain whether he touched the beverages or did not touch them, certainty is ruled tameh. If there was a tameh loaf in one's hand and he threw it among tahor beverages and it is uncertain whether the loaf touched the beverages or he did not touch them, the certainty is ruled tameh. And an uncertainty concerning beverages with regard to conveying tumah is ruled tahor. How so? If there was a staff in one's hand and on its tip there was a tameh beverage, and he threw it among tahor loaves, and it is certain whether the liquid touched the loaves or did not touch them, the uncertainty is ruled tahor. Rabbi Yossi says a tameh uncertainty of beverages with regard to food, it is ruled tameh. With regard to utensils, it is ruled tahor. Household, if there were two barrels, one tameh, one tahor, and he made a dough using one of them, and it is uncertain whether he made it from the tameh or from the tameh water, or he made it from the water tahor water, there's uncertainty concerning beverages, which with regard to food is ruled tameh, but with regard to utensils is ruled tahor. And uncertainty concerning tumah of hands with regard to acquiring tumah to conveying tumah to become tahor is deemed tahor. And uncertainty in a public domain is deemed tahor. And uncertainty concerning rabbinical edicts, if one ate tameh foods, or one drank tameh beverages, or one's head and the greater part of his body enters into draw water, or if 3 lugim of drawn water fell on one's head and the greater part of his body, then it certainly is deemed tahor. But regarding something which is an avatuma of rabbinic enactment, it certainly is deemed tameh. Okay.
Hey. Mohalos.
Okay. That's Vav Hey. When the partition is built on the floor and tumah is inside the partition section, utensils inside the house become tameh. When tumah is inside the house and utensils are inside the partitions in that section, if the area containing the utensils is a handbreadth by a handbreadth and a handbreadth high, the utensils remain tahor. If not, they become tameh because the floor of the house is as deep as one can go, is like the house. In the case of a house full of straw, when there is less than a cubed handbreadth between the straw and the joist and tuma is in the inner area, utensils near the exit become tummy. If tuma is in the outer area and utensils on the inner area, if the inner area is a handbreadth by a handbreadth and a handbreadth high, utensils remain tahor, and if not, they become tummy. However, if there's a cube handbreadth between the straw and the joust, the utensils become tummy in all circumstances. If a house was filled with earth or pebbles that were abandoned, or with a pile of grain or a mound of pebbles, even like that of the achain, tuma remembers directly up and directly down, even if the tuma is near the utensils.
Yeah.
And Kulin. Okay, it's Zion Hay. If the sinew of the thigh was cooked with other sinews, when he recognizes it, it prohibits only if it imparts a flavor. If not, all are prohibited, but the broth is prohibited only if a flavor was imparted to it. Similarly, a piece of nevela and similarly a piece of non-kosher fish that was cooked with other pieces, when he recognizes them, they prohibit only, and if they impart a flavor, if not, they are all prohibited. But the broth is prohibited only if a flavor was imparted to it. It applies to a kosher animal, but it does not apply to a non-kosher animal. Rabbi Yehuda says also a non-kosher animal, says Rabbi Yehuda, but the sinew of the thigh was prohibited since some sons of Jacob, when non-kosher animals were still permissible to them. They said to him, it was stated at Sinai, but it was written in its place. It is forbidden to cook any meat with milk except the meat of fish and locusts. Moreover, it is forbidden to bring it up with cheese on the table except for the meat of fish and locusts. If one vows to abstain from meat, he is permitted to eat the meat of fish and locusts. Fowl may be brought up with cheese on the table, but may not be eaten. These are the words of Reb Shammai, and Reb Hillel says it may be neither be brought up or not eaten. Nor said Reb Yossi, this is one of the lenient rulings of Beit Shammai and the stringent rulings of Beit Hillel. Concerning which table did they say this? Concerning the table upon which he eats, concerning the table on which he sets up the food, he may place one next to the other without apprehension.
Okay, Sota.
Sota. Okay. If a minka offering became tummy before it was sanctified in a service vessel, it is like all other minka offerings, and it may be redeemed. But if after it was sanctified in a service vessel, it is like all other minka offerings, and it must be burned. These are the ones whose minka offerings must be burned. One who says, "I am defiled to you," or about whom witnesses testify that he's defiled, or one says, "I will not drink," or whose husband does not want to give her a drink, or whose husband cohabitated with her on the way. The minka offerings of all who are married to Kohanim must be burned. If the daughter of a non-Kohen married a Kohen, a minka offering must be burned. But if the daughter of a Kohen married a non-Kohen, a minka offering is eaten. How does a Kohen differ from the daughter of a Kohen? The minka offering of a Kohen's daughter is eaten, while the minka offering of a Kohen is not eaten. A Kohen's daughter can be entitled, but a Kohen cannot be disentitled. A Kohen's daughter may contaminate herself with the tumor of the dead, but a Kohen may not contaminate herself with the tumor of the dead. A Kohen may eat of the most holy offerings, but the daughter of a Kohen may not eat of the most holy offerings. How does a man differ from a woman? A man who is a Matorah must allow his hair to grow and must rend his garments, but a woman need not let her hair grow and rend her garments. A man can impose the vow of Naziris on his son, but a woman cannot impose the vow of Naziris on her son. A man can shave his head at the conclusion of his Naziris on the basis of the Naziris offerings of his father, but a woman cannot shave her head on the basis of the Naziris offering of her father. And a man can sell his daughter, but a woman cannot sell her daughter. A man can betroth his daughter, but a woman cannot betroth the daughter. A man is stoned naked, but a woman is not stoned naked. A man's body is hung, but the woman's body is not hung. A man can be sold for his theft, but a woman cannot be sold for her theft.
Okay. And those are the only differences between men and women, of course.
That's it. Okay, and we have a quorum. Okay, quorum Daled Aleph. Hermaphroditic
Aphrodite.
is Aphrodite. I can never get that. In some ways like men, in some ways like women. In some ways like men and women, but in some ways they're neither like men or women. How is he like a man? He conveys uncleanness with the white like men, and dresses like men. And like men, he takes a wife, but is not taken as a wife. And his mother observes on his account the clean blood days like her males, but like men, he may not be alone with women. And like men, he may not is not maintained together with the daughters, and like men, he may not transgress the law of you shall round. And neither may you mar the corners of your head, your beard, and you shall not defile yourself for the dead, and he is liable for the commandments of all the Torah like men. How is he like a woman? He conveys uncleanness with the red like women, and the woman like may be alone with men, and like women he does not impose the Yibum obligation, and like women he does not share with the sons. And like women he does not eat the holy things of the temple, but his mother observes the unclean blood days for the females. And like women he is ineligible to give testimony, and like women he is subjected to illicit intercourse, and he is disqualified from eating tuna. Okay.
Okay, and that's it.
Oh, we're gonna finish.
All right, we start Shabbos.
So Shabbos, okay, good. Tasha's question. Someone said